Her grants. 3 wishes, his first request made her tremble. The citadel's atmosphere was heavy with ozone and ancient secrets, the air trembling with a low, alien resonance that seemed to pulse from the walls themselves. The vast observation deck unfurled like a blade of obsidian over the abyss, a chasm so deep the eye could not measure its end. Flickering fields of energy danced at the chasm's core, illuminating the darkness below with an ethereal shimmer. Ryder stood near the precipice, hands rough and scarred, his patched work clothes a stark contrast to the severe elegance of his captors. He looked smaller somehow, next to the towering figure of Nyx Commander Razak, whose seamless silver armor reflected the citadel's eerie light. Razak's face was a mask of cold calculation, blue veins of circuitry pulsing at his temples. Far below, hovering in the shimmering field, was Lyra, her skin emanating a subtle glow, golden eyes unwavering and predatory. Black hair, shot through with silver filaments, coiled around her shoulders in braids as intricate as circuitry. Obsidian armor, carved with sigils older than memory, encased her form, the ancient runes catching the light in shifting patterns. Razak's voice, metallic and disdainful, cut through the charged silence. "This is Lyra, our source, our edge. She is not efficient. You will change that." Ryder's jaw set, the lines of hardship etched deep into his face. His eyes flicked from Razak to the captive source below, and for a moment, a flash of old pride kindled in their depths. He was a relic of a devastated colony, a survivor defined only by the rare skill that had doomed him to captivity. Razak's gaze narrowed as he continued. "Your kind has a primitive knack. You will craft for her a new mind-focusing core, something to channel her abilities more effectively." Ryder tilted his head, his tone dry as dust. "And my reward?" The Nyx commander's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile, were it not so humorless. "When it is done, the Source will grant you 3 boons. Anything. A new home, lost loved ones restored, riches. She can do it all." At the word boons, Ryder's expression flickered, pain warring with cynicism. To him, the promise was a bitter joke, a feeble coin tossed to a beggar. But he saw no other path through the night that pressed in around him. He nodded once, slow and deliberate, accepting the bargain. Without another word, Razak turned, gesturing to his armored guards. Ryder was escorted away, boots echoing on polished stone, deeper into the heart of the citadel. The Nyx forge awaited, a sterile chamber thrumming with energy. Walls glowed with icy light, featureless machinery arranged in precise, soulless rows. Tubes and conduits hummed, the scent of ozone heavy in the air. Ryder's lip curled as he surveyed the cold perfection. There was no warmth, no soul here, only a prison of efficiency. A screen flickered to life before him. Lyra's visage appeared, luminous and haunting. Her voice drifted through the speakers, clear and resonant, yet strangely musical, like distant chimes in a storm. "You may claim your first boon, Maker." Razak and his guards stood back, arms folded, watching with hawk-like intensity. Ryder's gaze met the image on the screen, unyielding, proud. "I want a true forge," he said, voice steady, each word a declaration. "A basalt hearth, bellows of drakehide, a trough of crystal water, hammers of star iron, tongs, chisels, forms, and rare metals, orium, dusk steel, and 100 kilos of void stone." The list rolled off his tongue with practiced precision. For a heartbeat, Razak stiffened, bristling at the magnitude of the demand. But Lyra's eyes danced, a flicker of amusement breaking through her golden, alien gaze. "So be it," she intoned, her words ringing with a power that vibrated through the floor. A burst of light erupted, washing over the sterile machinery. The walls groaned, then dissolved, reality itself bending and reshaping. When the glare faded, the chamber had been transformed. A master's workshop stood in its place, basalt hearth flickering with real flame, bellows rich and dark, troughs glittering with crystal water. Hammers and tongs of star iron gleamed on the racks. Piles of orium and dusk steel shone beside a mountain of voidstone, black as night. Ryder moved forward, almost reverent. He ran his hands over the tools, feeling the ancient weight of craft and memory settle in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt like a craftsman again, no longer just a captive, but a creator. High above, Lyra watched from her energy cell. She had granted wishes for tyrants, bent realities, destroyed worlds at a word. Never had she granted a boon for the sake of creation. In Ryder's steady focus, the music of his labor, she felt something long dormant stir within her. A longing she could not yet name, but which held her transfixed as the night deepened, and the forge's fire sprang to life. Days blurred into weeks within the forge chamber, time losing its meaning beneath the citadel's ceaseless hum. Ryder surrendered himself to the rhythm of creation, each strike of his star-iron hammer ringing out through the volcanic air, each flare of the basalt hearth a balm upon his battered soul. The tools Lyra had conjured responded to his touch as if they had always belonged in his hands. The heat, the weight, the music of metal against metal, all of it stitched him back together, patching wounds that years of loss and captivity had left raw and aching. Yet the citadel itself seemed to mourn. Between the thunder of his labor and the roar of the bellows, Ryder heard it, the low, sorrowful resonance of the structure's bones, vibrating through the floors and up into his spine. It was Lyra's sorrow, woven into the very metal and stone, a pain so profound it seeped into everything, into Ryder's dreams, into the air he breathed. Sometimes, late at night, he would pause, fingers caressing the cooled surface of a finished chisel, and listen. The vibrations revealed secrets, hairline fractures where the abyss gnawed at the citadel's foundations, passages where whispers of rebellion flickered and died, places where the Nyx's armor was not as impenetrable as Razak believed. Razak's patience wore thin as the days passed. He prowled the forge's edges, armor gleaming, voice sharp as a blade. "How much longer?" he would demand, icy eyes boring into Ryder. But the work was flawless. No Nyx engineer could rival the artistry of Ryder's creations. Each piece sang with a resonance unique to its purpose, not merely functional, but alive with intention. Blades that could split atoms with a whisper, armor plates light as feathers yet unbreakable, mechanisms that pulsed with a strange, radiant life. Even the Nyx guards, for all their coldness, stared in grudging awe. Still, Ryder refused to rush. Each day, as he hammered and shaped and cooled, he watched for Lyra's face on the flickering monitors. Sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, he caught the faintest ghost of a smile, brief, luminous, and gone in a heartbeat. At last, Razak could contain himself no longer. The chamber was spotless, Ryder's work arrayed before the dais where Lyra floated, her energy field shimmering with restless light. Razak's impatience seethed through the air as he motioned Ryder forward. "It is time," Razak snapped, armored arms folded. "Your second boon. Name it, and do not test my generosity." Ryder stood before Lyra, sweat and soot streaked across his brow, hands stained with orium and dusk steel. He ignored Razak completely, focusing instead on Lyra's eyes, those wells of gold, bright and deep as molten metal. "I wish," Ryder began, voice low but unwavering, "for 1 hour with you. Not as a tool, not as a prisoner, as equals. To share a meal." A hush fell. The forge's resonance faltered, and a tremor rippled through the chamber, as if the very air recoiled in shock. Razak's face contorted in outrage. "This is not—" he began, but Lyra silenced him with a single raised hand. Her golden eyes widened, wonder flickering through the sorrow. For a long, suspended moment, she simply looked at Ryder as if seeing him for the first time, not as a maker, not as a means to an end, but as a person. Then she spoke, her voice soft and crystalline. So be it. The energy field shimmered, then collapsed with a sigh, its light receding like a tide. Lyra stepped forth, each movement graceful, uncertain. The glow of her skin softened the harsh forge light. Her obsidian armor, etched with living sigils, reflected the fires, but her eyes were full of vulnerability and hope. Ryder inclined his head. "Come," he said, offering his hand. "Let's eat." She hesitated, then accepted. Her fingers were cool, electricity sparking where their hands met. They crossed to Ryder's makeshift table, a workbench cleared of tools, draped in a battered cloth. He rummaged through his ration pack, producing bars of dense protein, dried fruit, a small pouch of spice. The ingredients were bland and uninspired, but Ryder was nothing if not resourceful. He set to work with the same focus he brought to the forge, heating the stone until it radiated gentle warmth, slicing fruit with a chisel, dusting the meal with a careful pinch of spice. He poured water from the crystal trough into simple cups, setting them beside the plates. Lyra watched, regal yet uncertain, as he arranged everything with reverent care. She sat, her armor whispering against the stone, eyes wide as she took in the details of his world. Hammers hanging in rows, metal shavings glinting on the floor, a half-finished sculpture of a bird perched on the windowsill. He handed her a plate, the meal steaming softly. "It's nothing fancy," Ryder said, voice rough. "But it's honest food, real, if you close your eyes." She smiled, tentative, and took a bite. Her lips parted in surprise. "It is good," she said, the word tasting strange and precious. They ate in silence for a moment, knees nearly touching. Ryder's hands, calloused and strong, trembled slightly. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "I haven't shared a meal with anyone in—" He faltered, pain flickering across his face. "Since before the colony fell." Lyra set her plate aside, leaning closer. "Tell me about them. Your family, your home." So he did. Ryder spoke in a low voice of the green fields and sunlit forges, of laughter echoing through his workshop, of his daughter's tiny hands in his partner's gentle smile. He described the day the Nyx ships blotted out the sun, the fire that swallowed his world, the long march through the ashes. His words came slowly at first, then faster, tumbling out as if some dam had broken. Lyra listened with an intensity that left him breathless. When he faltered, she reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. Her fingers traced the pale scars that laddered his skin, each one a memory etched in flesh. "I have known pain," she whispered. "The Nyx have kept me caged for centuries, drained me, used me. I have not walked free since I was a child. I have granted wishes for monsters, destroyed worlds at their command, yet they deny me even the simplest joys. A meal, a friend." Their hands lingered, joined over the stone. A surge of memory and emotion passed between them. Fear, hope, sorrow, longing. Something new, fragile and bright, flickered to life. Ryder squeezed her hand gently. "Scars mean we survived." Lyra looked down, her golden eyes shining. "They do, but sometimes survival is not enough." The hours stretched and softened around them. They spoke of memories, of love lost and hopes deferred, of the ways pain had shaped them, but not broken them. Lyra told him of her childhood before captivity, of a time when she was free, when the world was full of color and music and laughter. She described the Nyx's arrival, the day her powers had marked her as a prize, not a person. "They see me only as a source," never as Lyra. He nodded, understanding more than she could know. And I am just a tool to them, a pair of hands. He looked up, voice trembling. But you're not just a source. Not to me. Silence fell. They sat, hands entwined, forging something neither had known in far too long. At last, Lyra's eyes filled with warning. She leaned closer, her words urgent but soft. The focusing core. Razak does not want it to empower me. It is a trap. When you finish it, it will drain everything I am, end my life, and give the Nyx unstoppable power. Ryder recoiled, horror carving fresh lines in his face. The realization struck him like a hammer blow. He was being forced to forge her doom. The meal, the hour, the brief illusion of freedom, it all shattered, leaving only the brutal weight of the choice before him, and the unspoken promise in Lyra's gaze that he would not face it alone. Haunted by Lyra's warning, Ryder stalked the forge by night, sleep a stranger, his thoughts tangled in the citadel's resonant hum. He moved with purpose, studying every vibration, every subtle shift in the ancient stones. His eyes darted along the seams where basalt met void steel, tracing invisible fault lines. The citadel was mighty, but not invincible. It sang of age and fatigue, of power bent beyond reason. Somewhere in its endless corridors and echoing hollows, he knew there were weaknesses, cracks that might be widened, frequencies that could be twisted until the Nyx's own energy turned against them. Ryder reviewed the blueprints for the focusing core by day, memorizing every circuit, every cruel line of code Razak had provided. By night, he drafted his own secret designs, sketches of a resonance disruptor hidden in a battered notebook. It would look like a component of the core, just another piece of machinery, but its true purpose was rebellion. If the Nyx ever uncovered his deception, he would be dead before he could blink. Yet hope, fragile and bright, flickered with every line he drew. Lyra aided him from her cell, their partnership growing more intimate with every passing hour. At first, her guidance came in hurried whispers through the forge's comms, encoded in the language of engineers and prisoners. She shared secrets, how the energy field's modulation could be altered, which Nyx armor nodes ran hottest, which guards were susceptible to bribes or distraction. Soon their collaboration transcended words. Sometimes, when all others slept, Lyra projected fleeting images into Ryder's mind, memories of the Citadel's underbelly, half-remembered blueprints, the taste of freedom. In the secrecy of these exchanges, their bond deepened. Touch became a language of its own, a fleeting brush of Ryder's fingers against the monitor, an answering ripple of light along Lyra's skin. Thoughts twined, pain and hope mingling across the psychic thread that bound them. Each secret shared was a promise, each risk, a confession. The need for calibration finally brought Lyra physically to the forge. Razak's suspicion was palpable, the commander's gaze cold and sharp as he watched Ryder and Lara together. But the Nyx's demands for efficiency left him no choice. She must be present, Ryder insisted, voice flat. The core's harmonics are too delicate. I need to see how her energy interacts, directly. Lyra arrived under heavy guard, her obsidian armor gleaming, golden eyes wary but resolute. The energy field around her pulsed, responding to every emotion. In the roar of the forge, heat shimmering in the air, Ryder and Lyra labored side by side. To the guards it was only work, tools passed, numbers checked, formulas tested. But in the spaces between, they stole precious moments, a look lingering just a heartbeat too long, fingers brushing as they shared a stylus, silent laughter echoing in their minds. One evening, as the forge's fires faded to embers, Ryder knelt before Lyra, fastening a delicate component to her armor. His hands shook with exhaustion and something deeper. Her skin, cool and faintly luminous, glowed beneath his touch. For a moment he lingered, fingers tracing the edge where metal met flesh. Lyra's breath caught. Their eyes locked, so close he could see himself reflected in her golden gaze. Tired, yes, but alive in a way he had not been in years. Their breath mingled, lips just apart, the air thick with longing. "Ryder," she whispered, voice trembling. "If they see—" He shook his head, defiant. "Let them see. For once, let us be more than their tools." Time slowed, suspended in the forge's molten glow. Words unsaid hovered between them, crackling with electricity. Lyra's hand rose to his face, tracing the soot-streaked line of his jaw. He turned into her touch, eyes closing, memorizing the moment. The days that followed were a blur of labor and urgency. Ryder poured his soul into the final piece, a sliver of voidstone, no larger than his thumb, tuned to a frequency only Lyra could feel. Every blow of the hammer was a plea for mercy, every spark, a memory of what he had lost and what he might yet save. As he worked, he sang to the stone, not with words, but with grief and rage and a love that had taken him by surprise. The resonance disruptor thrummed with the music of their bond, a song only they shared. When at last it was done, Ryder cradled the disruptor in his palm, its surface cool and impossibly heavy. He knew, with the certainty of a craftsman's soul, that using it would cost him his life. But it would buy Lyra's freedom, and perhaps, just perhaps, strike a blow against the tyranny that had devoured his world. Lyra sensed his intent before he could speak it. She caught his hands in hers, eyes shining with fear. "There must be another way," she pleaded. "I cannot, will not, lose you, not after all we have shared." Ryder brushed her cheek, gentle but resolute. "Your liberty is worth any price," he said, "mine included." She shook her head, tears spilling, the glow of her skin flickering. "You gave me hope again, Ryder. Please, don't make me live without you." He smiled, broken and beautiful. "You gave me purpose. You made me a maker again." Night settled over the forge, the guards restless but cowed by Lyra's authority. Alone, she dismissed them with a flick of her hand, voice ringing with a power that brooked no defiance. The doors slammed shut. They were alone at last, on the edge of destiny. Lyra turned to Ryder, her armor casting long shadows, her face radiant with sorrow and longing. She reached for him, trembling. "If I lose you—" He took her face in his hands, rough thumbs tracing the silver filaments in her hair. "I never thought I'd create again," he whispered, voice raw. "Not anything that mattered. Not until you—" He bent to her, their lips meeting in a kiss fierce and desperate, full of hope and farewell. Tears mingled on their cheeks. They clung together, a human and an alien, joined by love and pain, and the promise of freedom, poised on the precipice of fate as the forge's fires flickered and the citadel held its breath. The ceremonial hall of the citadel throbbed with cruel splendor, the air charged with ozone and expectation. At the heart of the vast chamber, beneath a vault of obsidian and crystal, the Nyx elite stood arrayed in gleaming armor, faces impassive behind polished masks. Above them, banners shimmered with shifting sigils, marking this as a moment of conquest. Razak stood on the dais, his triumph barely restrained, silver armor catching the pale light. His eyes flickered from the assembled Nyx to the platform where Ryder now stepped, disruptor cradled in his scarred hands. Every step Ryder took felt like a farewell and a challenge. The resonance disruptor, forged of voidstone and longing, pulsed with a light that seemed to echo Lyra's own. Behind an energy field, Lyra watched him, a storm of fear, love, and defiance in her golden eyes. Chains of pale fire flickered at her wrists and throat, but she held her head high, gaze never leaving his. Razak's voice rang through the hall, sharp as a blade. "Hand it over, human!" Ryder stood his ground, refusing to kneel, refusing to avert his gaze. He looked from Razak to the crowd of Nyx, to Lyra's trembling silhouette. The disruptor vibrated in his palm, alive with promise and danger. "You wanted a prison," Ryder said, voice echoing in the charged silence. "I break them." For a moment the hall was utterly still, as if the citadel itself was caught between heartbeats. Then Razak's face twisted with fury. "Seize him!" he roared. The nearest guard surged forward, weapons raised, armor clattering. The air thickened with violence. But Lyra, no longer a passive captive, moved before the guards could reach Ryder. Power blazed from her, raw and radiant, bursting through the shackles that once held her. Light erupted from her skin, gold and white and wild, shattering the energy field in a rain of sparks. With a sweep of her hand, she hurled the first wave of guards aside. Their armored forms crashed into the columns and shattered glass, falling like broken idols. Ryder's heart hammered as chaos exploded around him. Lyra's power was glorious, a force of nature unbound for the first time in ages. She fought not as a weapon, but as a woman protecting someone who had seen her, truly seen her, for what she was. "Go!" Lyra's voice echoed inside his mind and through the hall, fierce and urgent. Ryder did not hesitate. He ducked beneath a falling banner, sprinting for the far end of the chamber where the citadel's main conduit pulsed with blue light, veins of power snaking deep into the heart of the fortress. Tss. Nick's guards lunged at him, but Lyra's fury shielded his path. Arcs of energy lashed from her hands, pinning enemies to the walls or sending them tumbling into the abyss below. The citadel itself seemed to awaken, alarms shrieking, floors trembling underfoot. Razak bellowed commands, but the elite wavered, some fleeing, others frozen by the storm of power unleashed in their midst. Ryder pressed on, clutching the disruptor, the world narrowing to the corridor of blue fire ahead. Reaching the main conduit, he found the access panel and wrenched it free. Beneath, the living heart of the citadel pulsed, energy hotter than any forge, brighter than any star. His hands shook, bones aching, but he held fast. The disruptor vibrated, singing to the resonance that filled every stone and wire. A memory of Lyra's touch, her lips, her tears, flickered through him. He pressed the voidstone sliver to the core, feeling its frequency merge with the conduit's pulse. With a cry, Ryder slammed the disruptor home. The citadel howled, a sound deeper than thunder, older than the mountains themselves. Walls fractured, shattering in radiant spiderwebs of white light. The banners overhead disintegrated, energy boiling from every seam. The floor buckled and split, blue fire and white heat pouring through the cracks. Nick's soldiers staggered, collapsing as their armor overloaded, and their minds were flooded with a resonance they could not bear. Ryder stood at the heart of the storm, light tearing at his skin and mind. Pain lanced through him, searing and absolute. Every memory, every loss, every hope blazed through him, burning away regret and fear. He glimpsed Lyra across the chaos, her eyes locked on his as the last of her prison shattered. The world dissolved into brilliance. Ryder's knees buckled, strength leaving him in a tide of agony and relief. He fell, body broken, to the trembling floor. His breath came in short, ragged gasps. The edges of his vision faded to white. As darkness crept in, Ryder's final sight was of Lyra, her chains dissolving, her form radiant and free at last. She surged through the shattered barrier, her cry a song of liberation. In her eyes, as the world fell to ruin around them, was all the love and gratitude he had never dared hope for. And then, with the sound of the citadel's death echoing in his bones, Ryder faded, knowing he had broken the prison and given Lyra back to the stars. The citadel collapsed around her, walls shrieking as the Nyx's empire of stone and light came undone. Smoke and energy streamed in fractured lines overhead. Pillars toppled, shattering into clouds of obsidian dust. Nyx's warriors staggered in panic, their armor sparking as the resonance disruptor's pulse dismantled everything the conquerors had built. Yet in the storm's heart, Lyra stood, unbound, her aura a blazing corona against the chaos. The urge to flee was a song in her blood. She could dissolve into pure energy, vanish into the currents between stars. Every particle in her body yearned for release, for the freedom she had been denied for centuries. But then her gaze fell upon Ryder's broken form, sprawled amid the ruins of the dais. His body was battered, his chest barely rising with breath, his life force flickering at the edge of the void. Something ancient and burning surged through Lyra, the force of love, impossible, undeniable, ignited within her, a star flaring to life. She moved to Ryder's side, heedless of the crumbling world, and knelt. Her hands hovered over his ruined body, trembling not with fear, but with the enormity of what she was about to attempt. "Ryder," she whispered, voice thick with grief and wonder. "Hold on." Closing her eyes, Lyra reached deep within, calling forth energy from the Citadel's dying core, from every echo of their shared memories, from the bond forged in darkness and fire. Light spilled from her palms, golden and white and full of promise. She channeled her power into him, weaving flesh and bone anew. It was not just healing, it was creation, the art of a maker and a source, entwined. As her energy flowed, Lyra felt the fabric of Ryder's being, every scar, every hurt, every triumph and failure. She pressed her soul to his, forging a link that would never break, a psychic bond more permanent than anything wrought by iron or code. She gave him not only life, but a part of herself, her strength, her memory, her hope. She would never be alone again, nor would he. Around them, the Citadel's collapse accelerated. The hall caved in with a roar, sending splinters of crystal and basalt skittering across the floor. Nick's guards, blinded and panicked, fled or fell, their empire dissolving to ruin. Lyra's power shielded them, a sphere of light parting the chaos. With a gasp, Ryder's chest rose, first shallow, then stronger. Lyra's eyes brimmed with tears. She gathered him into her arms, cradling his head against her shoulder. He was heavy, but she drew on strength she had never dared to claim, lifting him as if he weighed nothing at all. Together, they pressed through the destruction, Lyra blazing a path through flame and rubble. Nyx, who blocked her way, crumpled, cast aside by her dazzling power. The corridors twisted and burned, alarms blaring a final defeated dirge. Through the crumbling gates, Lyra carried Ryder out into the hangar, where a dozen scout vessels waited, engines keening in panic. She chose the smallest ship, fast, maneuverable, its hull still gleaming with the Nyx crest. She laid Ryder gently in the cockpit and climbed in beside him, fingers flying across unfamiliar controls. The ship responded to her touch, systems flaring to life as if recognizing a new master. Outside, the Citadel continued its collapse, towers folding inward, the abyss swallowing what remained. Lyra glanced once over her shoulder, at the place of her captivity, at the Empire's heart now falling to dust, then set her jaw and ignited the thrusters. The scout vessel leaped from the hangar, plunging into the void, streaking away from the ruin behind. In the cockpit, Lyra turned to Ryder. He lay motionless, skin pale beneath streaks of blood and ash, but his soul was bright within her mind, the psychic link thrumming between them. She knelt at his side, drawing energy into her hands, gentler now, precise and loving. Her touch was cool fire on his brow, her voice a song in his mind. "Come back to me," she whispered, lips brushing his temple. "We are not finished. Not yet." Light pulsed from her fingers, mending what was broken, knitting together muscle and sinew, coaxing life back into him with every breath she shared. The hum of the ship was a soft lullaby, an anchor in the silence of space. Time lost meaning as she waited. She watched the stars streak by, the Nyx homeworld shrinking to a cinder behind them. She watched Ryder's face, memorizing every line, every scar. each one a testament to his endurance and his love. She poured all her hope, all her longing, into the bond that tethered their souls. At last, a tremor ran through his hand. His eyelids fluttered. He drew a ragged breath, then another, his chest rising with growing strength. Lyra leaned over him, tears sparkling in her golden eyes. Ryder's lips parted. His voice was hoarse but alive. Did it work? Relief and joy surged through her. She bent, pressing a kiss to his scarred hand, letting her light flood their psychic bond. A wave of freedom, fierce and bright, echoing through both their souls. Lyra spoke, not aloud but through the link, her words resonating within him like the first note of a song. We are free. Ryder smiled, weak but certain. He reached for her, their fingers tangling, the bond pulsing with 1,000 memories and promises yet to be fulfilled. Outside, the stars wheeled in silence, the ship's hum a promise of journeys yet to come. The Knicks were behind them now. Empire in ruin, pursuit uncertain. They were fugitives, yes, but they were together. In the hush of the cockpit, with Lyra's hand in his, and the void unfolding before them, Ryder felt hope bloom anew, fragile, wild, unbreakable. Their stolen Nyx ship, rechristened Haven, drifted in the vastness of the Veil Nebula, cradled in swirls of indigo and violet starlight. The hull, scarred by their escape but sound, gleamed like a promise in the endless dark. Inside, the gentle thrum of the engines had become a lullaby, a heartbeat that pulsed between two souls, learning what it meant to be truly free. Ryder stood in the small living compartment, bare-chested, head bowed as he traced the silvery scars that crisscrossed his skin. Each mark was a memory, of pain, of defiance, of dying and being remade. Some glowed faintly, shimmering with pale light whenever Lyra was near. He could sense her even before she entered, a bright presence humming along the psychic tether that bound them. Sometimes their connection was overwhelming. Dreams, sensations, half-remembered memories spilled between them in tides. He would feel her laughter as a pulse in his own chest, see flashes of her childhood world, a riot of color and song, when he closed his eyes. She, in turn, felt the coarse edge of his grief, the ache of wounds time refused to close. She entered the cockpit quietly, her bare feet whispering across the metal deck. Gone was the obsidian armor of her captivity. She wore a simple tunic, her hair unbound, silver threads catching the nebular light. She was radiant, more herself than he had ever seen her, regal and vulnerable, a being forged anew. Lyra paused in the hatch, watching him with gentle understanding. "You're thinking of her again," she said softly. Ryder turned, lips pressed into a thin line. The ghost of Mara, his lost apprentice, hovered always at the edge of his thoughts. He nodded, unable for a moment to find words. Lyra crossed the space between them, resting a hand on his shoulder. Her touch sent warmth rippling through their bond. "She is part of the strength I cherish in you." He looked up, eyes shining with gratitude and sorrow. "I was supposed to protect her. I failed." "You did not fail," Lyra murmured. "You survived. You carried her memory out of darkness. That is a victory the Nyx can never take." He covered her hand with his, letting her reassurance settle his heart. Later, as the Haven drifted through a glowing pocket of dust, Ryder busied himself in the galley. He scavenged what he could from Nyx rations and hidden stores, coaxing flavor and color from bland, preserved fruits and grains. He remembered Lyra once describing a fruit from her home, a burst of sweetness, a hint of sun-warm earth. He worked from memory and intuition, blending ingredients, humming softly under his breath. When Lyra joined him, he presented the dish with a flourish, eyes hopeful. "I tried to recreate it, the fruit you told me about. I hope it's close." She took a bite, eyes going wide in astonishment and delight. Through their bond, Ryder felt her pleasure as his own, a bright spark of joy lighting up the shared space between their minds. Lyra laughed, the sound musical, and dabbed a bit of the fruit on her finger. "Here," she said, offering it to him. He leaned forward and took her finger gently into his mouth, tasting the sweet tang, feeling her pulse skip. Desire flared, electric and immediate, threading through their psychic link. Lyra drew in a shaky breath, her cheeks flushed gold. For a long moment time slowed. Ryder let his hand linger on hers, eyes locked on her lips. The boundaries between their bodies and thoughts blurred, desire and tenderness swirling together. In the cleansing chamber that night, steam rose in soft clouds, swirling around them like nebular mist. Lyra stood uncertain at first, her eyes wide with wonder as water cascaded over her skin. It was her first time experiencing the simple luxury of a shower, and she gasped in delight, turning her face up to the spray. Ryder watched her, awe in his gaze. He stepped in beside her, tracing the scars on his torso, letting droplets race down his chest. Lyra's hands met his, fingers exploring the landscape of old wounds and healed flesh, mapping the story of his survival. He cupped her face, brushing damp hair from her brow. Their mouths met, slow and searching, steam curling around them as passion and solace intertwined. Afterward, wrapped in towels and silence, Ryder lay awake in the small berth, nightmares creeping in at the edges of his peace. Mara's face haunted him, as did the ghosts of his lost world. He trembled, guilt a weight pressing on his chest. Lyra, sensing his distress, slipped into the berth and pressed her forehead to his. "You are not alone," she whispered through their bond. He shuddered. "I see them, all the ones I couldn't save." She shared her own pain with him then, images of her home before the Nyx, a world of laughter and light. She showed him its destruction, the day her power was stolen and she was caged, the endless ache of loss, the love she once knew now dust and memory. Her grief, ancient and vast, wrapped around his own. He held her close, their tears mingling. "We survived," he said, echoing his words from another life. "That matters." "We heal," she answered, "together." As the days passed, their wounds, seen and unseen, began to knit. They found comfort in small rituals, sharing meals, tinkering with the ship, watching nebular storms unfurl beyond the viewport. Their bond deepened, each moment a thread in the tapestry of their new life. A week later, while Ryder recalibrated the ship's long-range sensors, a strange signal caught his attention, a whisper in the background noise, unmistakably human, but threaded with a psychic resonance. Not Nyx, not hostile, but a cry, a song, echoing through the void. He called Lyra to the cockpit. She placed her palm on the console, closing her eyes as she reached out with her mind. "It's real," she confirmed, voice trembling with awe. "A remnant of your people. Survivors. They are singing to the stars." Hope surged in Ryder's chest, mingling with apprehension. "They'll come for us," he said. "The Nyx, maybe others. I won't let them hurt you." Lyra smiled, fierce and radiant. "Let them try. We'll give them a reason to hope." Ryder's hand found the helm. Lyra's rested gently on his shoulder, a steady anchor. Their eyes met, promise and determination shining between them. The haven banked, engines humming as Ryder set a new course, toward the signal, toward the unknown. He was no longer just a craftsman. He was a pioneer, a protector, a man remade by love and loss. Lyra was no longer a captive, but a partner, a mentor, a beloved soul twined with his. Together, they guided the haven into the waiting stars, their course set for hope, for healing, for a future forged by their own hands, unbreakable, unstoppable, and free. That's the end of the story. You can leave us a tip or become a channel member. This greatly helps our team improve the quality of our videos. You can send a tip using the Super Thanks button right below the video. We truly appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed and supported us. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.